In back of us. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Next is roll call.
Frank Fry.
Here.
Bill Schlesinger.
Here.
Kelly Lee.
Here.
Ed Verberg.
Present.
Sean Samsel. Charlene Robinson.
Here.
Tom Berezny.
Here.
Nori Nelson.
Here.
John Bernal.
Here.
Frank Santa Cruz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the meeting summary of October 20th, 2024. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written. I thought they were very well done.
Okay. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Are there any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to staff updates. So as I mentioned at the previous meeting, Tom will be leaving us to go to, you said Bay, Michigan?
Yeah, Bay City, outside
Bay-
of Bay City, Michigan.
Okay, so Tom, on behalf of the committee and the staff, we'd like to present you with this certificate.
Well, thank you very much, Charlene.
Thank you.
Okay.
And they also gave me
You don't expect words, do you?
Yes, you will
Okay.
have the floor.
So I didn't prepare any notes, but I just want thank everybody on the committee currently and in the past. And it's great to see the way that we collaborate on this committee for that one common purpose that we have. And Catherine, is she here? No?
No, she's out today.
So the whole staff back there, I know Jason and Michelle very well. I know Matt very well. And just working with them for the last, in another thing that I do for the last 5 years down in the Green Valley area. Been great to work with. And just looking forward to the next phase of my life. So thank everybody very much for everything.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for your dedication to this committee. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add or say to Tom?
I'd like to say a few words about Tom and on behalf of everybody. Tom sometimes asks the hard questions, and he sometimes asks the questions we never dream of. It's good. It's kept us really informed. I think he's clearly prepared for every meeting. He interfaces with the residents from this area very positively. It's been great to have him on the committee. I've enjoyed working with him.
Exactly.
Anyone else? Okay, again, thanks, Tom, for your dedication to this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Moving on to road repair update, Jason?
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may interject, in case anyone needs to speak, make sure your mic is lit so they can hear you. Otherwise, they won't be able to hear you.
Mine will not lie.
It's lit.
Good to go? Perfect. Well, thank you, members of the committee. Happy to present our update for this month, kind of hybrid of November and December update for you. So getting started, perfect, works. Getting started with some substantially complete projects, some updates for you. We have 4 projects that are new to this substantially complete list since we last talked. You can see them in red there. That includes our Sonoran Ranch Camino Verde Estates curb ramp project, which is currently doing final cleanup, punch list items. So there's still some work going on out there, but it is substantially complete at this point. Their treatment project is also pretty well wrapped down. They're doing final striping this week, and that will get that job completed. Riverside Crossing curb ramp and mill and pave. That project is also substantially complete and working on punch list and cleanup items as we speak. And then our Tanque Verde Valley mill and pave project is also in the substantial completion category, as well, working on final cleanup items. So really 4 jobs kind of closing out at the same exact time, but a lot of really good work going on currently. So ongoing projects, we've got 3 at the moment that are in construction. Our Community of the Oeste Sunset mill and pave project, really just getting going. They're starting utility lowering work this week, with the first paving on that project expected next week. And it'll kind of bookend around the holiday season, so they'll take a little bit of a break between the holidays. But work expected on that project to be completed by the end of January. Our Vail Corona de Tucson surface treatment project, probably about 50% done. All the crack seal work is done on that job, with fog seal starting on the 16th of December. And then our industrial region surface treatment is the last one that's ongoing. They just started their crack seal work this week. So really just a couple days into that job as well, but it's getting going here, and should be progressing pretty quickly as we go through it. So talking about some other projects we've got coming up. So we have our Jupiter Estates Rancho Escondido ADA and pave project. So this is a combo curb ramp project and paving project. This was awarded to Tucson Asphalt Contractors. Engineer's estimate was $1.7 to $2 million. The low bid was $1.543. There's 30 curb ramps on this project, just shy of 3 miles of paving on this job as well, with a completion date of middle of April. They're actually getting ready to start this job tomorrow. So tomorrow they'll be getting started on this job and working on the curb ramp portion of it throughout the next month or so before paving really gets started in February timeframe is when we're expecting the mill and pave portion of this job, as long as weather is cooperative. Another project to talk about, our Foothills Area Surface Treatment Project. So this is one of our larger surface treatment projects for the year. This was awarded to Sunland Asphalt. Engineer's estimate was 2.1 to 2.4. Low bid was 1.87. There's 6.34 miles of arterial, or 6.34 miles of local, surface treatment, and 29.05 miles of arterial collector, with a completion date on this one of the 20th of June. That's so that we can get that in before the end of the fiscal. That's why that's in a little bit of a different spot than you normally see our project end dates. This project is primarily fog seal, crack and fog seal, with some in there being some heavier surface treatment like thin overlays. Right now, the contractor is expecting to get this started probably early February. So still a few months out from this really getting going, but certainly a lot of the pre-project stuff is already starting to happen with project submittals and the like getting ready to go as well. Next job to talk about, our Anway and Nelson surface treatment project. So this is also been awarded to Sunland Asphalt. Estimate on this was 2.0 to 2.4. This one came in at 1.5. There's 7 miles of local road, 11.5 miles of arterial collector. This is primarily up on the northwest side of the metro area, and is You can kind of tell from the name, Anway Road is one of the major roads on this package. So all of Anway Road from Manville up to El Tiro is going to be receiving some type of surface treatment. This job has fog seals, micro seals, cape seals, so it's kind of a very broad surface treatment package, which is why it has that completion date of the 20th of June as well, because it will be kind of a longer project. Right now, they're anticipating starting this in the early portion of March, so still a couple months out from that as well. Also up on that side of town is the Aver Valley area pulverized mill and pave. This is our hard bid for the year. This is in the process of being awarded, so it still has to go through the procurement process and go up to the Board of Supervisors here in the next couple meetings. The contractor, the apparent low bid for the contractor is Tucson Asphalt Contractors. Estimate for this was $3.5 to $4 million. Apparent low bid was $2.971. There's 3.46 miles of local, 7.19 miles of arterial collector repair work on this project. The main road on this one is Silver Bell Road. So this project does follow after the currently active Silver Bell Road Blanco Wash Bridge project that our capital improvement group is doing. So as soon as that project wraps up, this project will probably get ramping up and going. We are expecting official award of this job probably in January. So that's what we're looking at right now. Tucson Mountain Surface Treatment Project. This is advertised. This is our last scheduled surface treatment project of the year. So the last big project as well. That is currently out to bid. Bid opening on that is going to be the 19th of December. Engineer's estimate is $1.6 to $1.9 million, and it is a big package, as you can see. Just over 15 and a half miles, just shy of 16 miles of local road surface treatment, and then 20.59 miles of arterial collector surface treatment. This is all crack and fog seal, so that's why there's so many miles of road on this project. And it will also have to be completed prior to the 20th of June. I know, we've thrown a lot of projects at you, I promise. Last one for you. The Sonoran Ranch Camino Verde Estates Mill and Pave. Obviously, this is following after that recently completed curb ramp project that we talked about at the beginning that is now in substantial completion. So this is getting ready to get advertised here shortly. We're likely expecting it to get advertised in January. Once that curb ramp project has had time to get through the punch list and cleanup phase. So right now, engineers estimate $1.6 to $1.8 million on this. The two subdivisions involved are the Sonoran Ranch and Camino Verde Estate subdivisions, in which we have just shy of 5 miles of local road for repair. And the completion date on this one will be the 30th of May. So, talked a lot, so let's look kind of where we're at dollar-wise. Pie chart, very colorful at this point in the year, which is what you would expect at the kind of midpoint of the year. We have a good amount incomplete already, as well as that portion that is in construction, a decent amount awarded at this point, with just a little bit left in package prep. We've got 3 more jobs scheduled at this point in the year left to advertise, including the one that is out currently. So that's kind of where we're at. Pretty good progress for this year. Any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, Jason, how you doing?
Doing good.
You knew I was going to ask this
Oh,
question.
it's your
Yeah,
last
you're
meeting.
prepped,
I'm
right?
expecting like 30
Okay,
questions.
so when
Bring
I
it,
was
Tom.
looking through those 3 slides
Yes.
on the awarded ones, I just did some quick head thing, and it's close to $2 million,
Yeah.
the bid under the estimates. So what
Yeah.
are we going to do with that money?
So that is a great question. So I know we had talked about at the very beginning of the year that we were planning to do a kind of a mid-year review of where we're at status-wise. We've been really well on track of getting these jobs out and knowing kind of where we're at financially. And that's part of the goal. You know, you see we had really not, I think there's 2 projects left in prep, 1 project out for advertisement. Part of that goal was to get those out early enough that we knew with a decent span of time left in the year, potentially where we were going to be at financially, with the goal of if we had extra, we may be able to do extra projects. I think we're pretty safely into that bet now of having ability to do extra things. And so as we've been going through, we have added a few extra things already to current projects as they've been getting advertised. Things that are fitting the guiding principles that we have, but also in a convenient location where we have projects at. And so it's a very interesting thing of being able to put these into projects ahead of time, which obviously have boosted the engineer's estimates a bit, and then we get more savings off those even. Which is why we're going to plan to do a second review in about 2 or 3 months as we get toward the second half of the year to find even more potential projects and things to look at. Right now, with still having those 3 jobs out, we also need to make sure we're leaving room for contingency, leaving room for the jobs that are in construction, just in case there are unforeseen items that do come up. But as we're continuing through the year, we'll continue to do those reviews and continue to find new opportunities that make sense next to projects that we have, or potentially being able to accelerate stuff from next year's and make new projects out of that.
Okay,
Does
so
that answer your question?
yeah, but and just I guess a follow on.
Yeah.
So are you going to follow the same basic premise where if you've got a project that's been awarded, you can add something in the proximity where it makes financial sense, where you don't have to move something from Marana down to Green Valley or
Correct. Yeah, that's one of the
or something like that?
Correct. That's one of the thought process with looking at these is potential areas where there are roads that fit the guiding principles that are very, that make sense to go into a job. Obviously, like you mentioned with the math you were doing, there's enough there that there's a potential for whole additional projects too, though, that could be bid out. And that was part of our goal with getting stuff out in a timely fashion this year, of really, hopefully, by the time we got to January, February, we had a really solid idea of what it looked like and whether we were going to be able to do additional projects. And I think we'll have that answer here by that time frame of knowing exactly where we're looking for the last several months of the fiscal year.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jason? Okay, Jason, RTA next. Update. Oh, that's Paul.
You want to handle that, Jason?
I'll let Paul handle that.
Paul, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's not too much to report on RTA Next progress right now. They are still in the open house phase, so that started early November. There's been about, I believe, 9 open houses. Pima County DOT staff has been present at each of those. And the RTA Next survey is still open and available. I believe the board ended up canceling its December meeting and will be pushing that into January. That will allow for more open houses after the turn of the year. I think there are 15 in total, so there's a couple January 6th and 7, I believe. And then the board will start to take a look at the input that they've received through both the survey and the open houses during their January meeting. That will then prepare them for the ballot initiative, crafting the ballot initiative in preparation for the anticipated November ballot appearance. So with that, happy to answer any questions. There's not been any other committee activity. I believe the CART committee, which is the citizen committee that oversees RTA 1 has had a little bit of activity in preparation for releasing an annual report. That's routine business that the CART committee oversees, and so they've been gathering to oversee that process and schedule the release of that report before the end of the calendar year. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, just a comment. Paul and I were talking before we started that, getting a successful election isn't always the end of the story, because we've been paying attention to what's going on in Maricopa County. Even though they had a successful election, there's a potential challenge to that result. So who knows? And Pinell, of course, similarly, had theirs somewhat overturned, if you will. So looking forward to keeping our fingers crossed down here.
And actually, before I left the office, we did get a notice that it was unsuccessful overturning or
They've withdrawn
moving
that. I've heard
forward.
that. The one in
Yes.
Maricopa, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard the same thing.
Very good.
Does anybody have any questions for Paul? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
And so now I will open the floor up. This was added to the agenda to discuss the RTA input, the committee input on the RTA next. And so, Tom?
Yeah, Madam Chair. So during the review a couple weeks ago, I was talking to Catherine about some of the open houses or the community forums that the PAG and RTA Next have been having. One of the downsides of it is they give a brief presentation and then they have a breakout session. If you might have a table on mobility, you might have on the planned projects, and you go to talk to each individual, subject matter expert from the transportation development community, but not everybody that attends in the audience can hear every question that's asked. So that was a downfall to some of these open, forums that they've been running, is you don't get to hear everybody's concerns when you're sitting there for an hour and a half, because you're focused on one particular area. So, we're discussing, and Catherine made a suggestion that we put this on the agenda for today. And since we are the body selected, by the Board of Supervisors and the county administrator, if there was a desire to have the PTAC make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, so Supervisor Scott, who's the PAG representative for the supervisors, can take that to the PAG. So with that, then, how we conduct that, if we want to jointly go through the survey one session here, I think they kept it open until next month, right? So I don't know if we as a committee want to give a statement on what we feel about RTA as the representatives for the Board of Supervisors or not. So that's where I'm coming from on that one, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Tom, I think that's a heck of a good suggestion, quite honestly. But the one thing that occurs to me is when we sent our letter to the board back in May, the one item that we put towards the end of our letter was, number one, I realize you'll probably have to wait till RTA Next, is decided to see what action the county takes. But the one added, suggestion in that letter was we should at least have the RTA Next program modified to allow for capital reconstruction of regionally significant roadways for heavy maintenance, frankly, And I don't know that the Board of Supervisors has ever reacted to that. I still think that's something we as a group ought to encourage Pima County's rep to take to the RTA board to have the program modified to allow for that.
So I think something like that could be added on whatever recommendation, or if we want to draft a letter or do a presentation for the Board of Supervisors, this is how their committee views RTA Next as a whole. What are some of the shortfalls that we see?
thinking about this a little bit in some of our deliberations. First off, what John Burnell proposed, I took that language out. We've mentioned that as we've gone along briefing our supervisors, but I don't really know that it's gone beyond that. And having the message going instead of just the committee knowing on the other side, RTA committee, knowing we did that. There's nothing formal going over saying this is really what we as a group recommend. So I would really support sharing that information across under a letter from Charlene, and anything else that has merit, which you were describing. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't speak up, you don't get in this world. So I kind of like Tom's idea of sending a message forward. And I like what John had proposed that we've been talking up as we've been going as supervisors. So,
And let me add something to that, Madam Chair. This is kind of getting into the next discussion item, but in a conversation that Bill and Frank and I had with Carmine and Catherine, as a follow-up to our letter, and, to follow up what the rest of the committee has done with their board members, I remember raising this with Carmine in that discussion, and his reaction was something like, well, there are so many things that are still not in the program from Pima County's perspective. I'm not sure there's room for allowing money for that purpose, but I still think we ought to make that pitch, because the city of Tucson, from my understanding, is still interested in having that happen out of RTA Next. I don't know if they'll get it or not, but if both the city and the county ask for it, the odds are much better, I would think. So I agree with what Ed said, that we ought to just maybe
and
put that in a
otherwise,
separate
we just
letter.
end up with this endless inventory of roads that eventually we're going to be caught paying the bill for the maintenance. So we have to have some other way of having revenue come in, take care of these roads that RTA is building and leaving us with. So I think it's really important to go with what John's language, which I highlighted in my talking points for this meeting, because without our stepping forward, it's just going to go along, and eventually we're in this inventory that we don't know what to do with in terms of where we get the money. We're having a hard enough time with roads that we do have.
Yeah, I would
Paul?
hope that if we make the presentation to the Board of Supervisors, and Supervisor Scott will take it to the PAC, because he's the boss rep for it. So, if we have some kind of a consolidated language coming out of this committee, I think it would go a little bit of a ways anyways, maybe not a long ways, but it wouldn't hurt.
Paul?
Just to clarify, so John, there is an arterial rehabilitation element within the plan. So I think the toe is in the doorway, but there's only $20 million of funding in that. So I think that determination in the draft plan is that it is allowable and legal, provided it's not pothole filling, routine maintenance, things of that nature that are prohibited through the RTA statutes, but it's not really a well-funded element. So I think-
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, $20 million for a 20-year plan? You realize how far that's going to go?
Yeah, it's a
So-
rounding error.
Yeah.
How many miles? A few, that's about it, right?
Did you hear what Jason just had up there?
Yeah.
Since we're on the next topic anyway, I think these kind of meld together. I'd like to
Yeah.
make some comments on the meetings that Kathy and Charlene and I went to, and the other meetings that went to with Frank and so forth. There's a clear sense, I think, across at least three of them, that we should be eyeing this vehicle license tax. And is it feasible? So I'm going to ask the question that Supervisor Lee asked us, and I'm passing it on to Paul. Is it legal to reallocate the funds that are going into the general fund from the vehicle license tax strictly to transportation? Because if it is, we'd like to know. And the second thing Supervisor Lee recommended, and of course we had Supervisor before that wanting to know what slice off the bottom, is it 1/4% or 1/10%, or what would it be across all county programs to put that $35 million back into transportation? So there's interest on the part of more than one supervisor. So we need to know the answer to that question. I think the most telling thing she said, and she's getting ready to walk out the door, is you need to take your message to the Board of Supervisors at one of their meetings and meet with them and kind of go through this with them again to refresh them And then, when it gets time where RTA, if it doesn't make it, we need to circle back then. The more times you touch base with these people, the more it's apt to happen, having had that happen in another project. So I would like to suggest that Tom's talking about a letter, we can put together something that we hand to him, but I think we need to go and speak to him.
Well, I would give a briefing to the board,
Yeah,
and then, hopefully would have one advocate that sit there and say, as far from the Board of Supervisors saying, take these concerns from our committee, and Supervisor Scott, you will address it, address it at the PAG.
well, some of this involves PAG and RTA, and
Right.
some of it just involves the county.
Right.
So I think we can have a briefing package we hand to him that does both, but we can speak to both in the order of whatever we prefer. But we've just never gone before the board before. And I think it's telling, we've been in operation a long time. We've worked hard on where we're at now. And moving forward from just talking individually to them, to getting on the forum in the public, I think is going to be helpful. So anyway, that's my strong recommendation, to package these together and do one sweep together.
Madam Chair, since we are on that next topic, two things. The VLT, Bill Schlesinger raised that subject directly with Catherine, and he might want to chime in on what she has given us in the way of feedback. But I certainly agree with what Ed's saying. It's probably time for us to stand up and say, we're your advisory committee, and here's what we think is going on in this area of transportation finance, and our recommendations. But the other thing that I think is somewhat challenging, and we're grateful, I know with our meeting with Carmine and Catherine, Carmine volunteered that maybe Jan Lesher would want to come here, this group as well, and he somewhat offered that he might make that possible. So I think that may be a good first step. Let's get the county administrator to come and talk with us about our suggestions, and then let her know, no surprises of course, that we would like to go to the board as well and just say, hey, here's where we're coming from.
That's a great idea, and she may have some ideas that will help us as we step forward to the board. Because she's there, basically
Correct.
staff to the board, so good idea.
Yeah, but I would caution you, try to get this done, before next spring, because, Paul, you guys are gonna start setting up the budget for next year most tick, right?
Already.
Probably already planning on it. So, if we could slice off that VLT, add it into, just to DOT instead of it, the rest of it, third of it going to the, the general fund, then, that just helps out with everything that the Department of Transportation has to do with, Matt has to do with, maintenance and operations and things like that. So if we could, get that moving most tick, Madam Chair. Was an Army term.
Sounds like a January meeting to me. If she's available, just for that purpose, if she's available. Somebody needs to put together the points that we want to make on both sides, for the regional as well as the county.
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions or clarification and a couple comments. First of all, I think I'll start with, Tom, you're suggesting that this committee look at the RTA next and make recommendations to the board
Right.
regarding.
That's what I'm saying.
Are you thinking that would be at the level that we would start suggesting reallocation of approved funding, and not approved, suggested funding and projects?
It could.
Okay.
It could, because, in District 4, there's only one substantial, project, and that's Colossal Cave Road from I-10 to Camino Loma Alta. There's nothing down in the Green Valley area, so it could mean, there's a higher preponderance to go for projects within the city of Tucson city limits. And, is the county getting enough of the slice of the pie? So it could go into that bill,
I guess my hesitation on that is they've spent a number of years
Right.
having that discussion. And not that we shouldn't do that, not that I don't think we shouldn't do that, but I'm wondering if our input should be, this should be approved or not approved. Recommendation on this board. I think they are going to have lots and lots of public input on what projects should be changed, what should be taken out. I'm not saying we shouldn't vote. It's thing. This is my personal way. It's time to vote on this thing. And not talk about where this project should go out.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
It's not an opinion that the board, this committee needs to take.
I sat here a couple hours ago and took the survey, and, we could, you could use the survey as, okay, which ones are most important to you, which ones are least important? Are you likely to vote for it because of the structure of it or not? Is it just right? Is it too much, too little in this area? When I talk transit for the part of District 4 where I'm at, we have no transit. We have Sun Shuttle. That's it. So we don't have SunTran down there in Green Valley at all. So to the folks in Green Valley, there's ridership on the shuttle that runs from Green Valley to the southern transfer station there. There's maybe 1,000 people a month, and that's it. So transit to us down there in Green Valley is not important. So yeah, that would. I think, Bill, that's a great idea. Thumbs up or thumbs down, by the way it's written right now. I don't know if you guys want to go out on that limb or not, but take it in consideration for your January meeting.
And now,
I'll be shoveling snow.
I'm repeating, my concern is, there's been years of discussion,
Right.
lots of committees,
Understand
lots of
that.
changes, and I would be surprised if we could come to a consensus in this committee about what what additional changes should be made.
Yeah.
Correct.
I agree.
But I think we could
Right, so-
come to a conclusion, we believe it should go to that it's ready to go, or even something that might say, taking into account any changes that are made based on public input, we feel it should go to a vote in November. Anyway, that's my thought. I did have, John had mentioned the meeting we had, and the conclusion that came out of it was something I pretty much knew, is transportation financing when mixed with politics is very complicated. There was a discussion of, can the vehicle registration money go to transportation? And I think that, to me, there was the question raised, well, can we designate that money for transportation only? And I guess the conclusion I came out is, it can still go into the general fund, determine how much it is, and then the board, as part of their budgeting process, can say, this money out of the general fund is going to transportation. My thought was, there doesn't need to be a question about the legality of it. It's a budgeting issue,
Right.
not a legal issue.
Madam Chair, and I think, Bill, you're exactly right, because the vehicle license tax, when it's allocated by the state, and this is in legislation, it goes into the general fund, and then they determine how it gets divvied out. So a third of it being given, only 2/3 of it being given to the Department of Transportation to fund everything, including HR, payroll, vacation, and everything else. That was a decision that was made like 20 or 30 years ago, and they've never had a relook at it. So now, with the visibility that we have on roads, it's time to, let's try to roll this back, because
And I think there was a good discussion, and I think it's just the reality of the thing, is that if you were to say, there's this amount of money that's going into the general fund, okay, board, take that amount of money and put it to transportation projects, they then have to decide what projects don't get money. And that's the reality of I think what was
Right.
relayed to us is, that's a tough thing for the board to do. And not that we can't recommend that they do it, but this is my personal feeling. We are taking money that is paid by vehicle owners, putting it into the general fund for other projects, then going out and saying, we need a half-cent sales tax to pay for roads.
Yeah.
And it may be that roads is what you can get a half-cent sales tax on. Has a better chance of getting a half-cent sales tax approved than the other programs that the board wants. If they said, that money went, we budgeted that money for roads, now we need a half-cent sales tax for these other programs. And I get the impression that's the politics of the thing.
Yeah.
We brought up, you said sales tax, but if that doesn't work, here's another route you try to consider. We're only getting a third of it, general fund's getting 2/3. And if a supervisor's asking, is it legal, I think we need to be prepared to answer that question if it comes up in an interaction with the board, so that we're not caught flat-footed.
Right.
So I have a little bit different perspective than you on that one. I think we need the answer to that question. If the answer is yes, it can be taken over. And I think, but remember when we case them for consider sending it over. But remember when we asked them for 13.5 million, what was it, a year and a half ago? Oh, well, they're going to have to reallocate some money. They didn't want to do that. And the finance staff gave them several pretty decent alternatives. So first off, I think we need to know it's legal. And secondly, I think we need to be advocating for it. Because it belongs in vehicles. That's where it's coming from. So we have a good footing to make that case. And that's why I think two of the supervisors were so drawn to the idea that it's going to make sense. Now, you look at Tucson, and they approved the half-cent sales tax. So maybe it is more feasible because it's more popular, if you will, because people are tired of driving on these bumped-up roads, and they're willing to put a board. Let's let the board decide. I don't think we should take either off the board. Let's let the board decide, and let's be advocates for it. I didn't hear you saying anything against doing both.
No, I'm not. No,
It's just how we
my
put it across to them.
my impression, I don't think anybody's under the impression that there's a law out there that says the board can't take general fund money and put it towards transportation. And that's, so my opinion, I'm not an attorney, I'm just an engineer. But the impression I get, this is not we need to figure out if this is a budgeting
No, I agree
decision.
with you 200% on
Yeah.
that. But I still think if we have a supervisor member asking the question, we need it answered.
Yes, I agree.
Does anyone else have anything to add to the discussion? And actually, I'll just say for open discussion meetings with Board of Supervisors, does anyone else have anything to provide to the discussion?
I will add one other thing. I think we need to go back and talk to Jan Allen before we talk to the county administrator, whether and how, what the timing can be of that. That way we've covered all bases and she's not left out. And we go and make a presentation to the board, and why didn't you come talk to me? So
Now, who is that, Ed?
the replacement for Lee.
Oh, the new supervisor.
Yeah, the
I
new
see.
supervisor. I think we've got to be inclusive in this process. If you talk to four and you have one that, they never crossed my doorstep. I just think that's not only a courtesy, but a wise thing to do. So, and that's not hard. When do they do the transition?
First meeting in January.
Okay, so we could do it any time, basically, that she's available. So maybe we should cover that base, in the Jan Lesher base, as Tom suggested, and then the board, sort of that sequence. That way, everybody's informed.
Anyone else have anything else to add to this discussion?
So, Madam Chair, how do we do this? I guess I'm curious if the staff invites the new supervisor-elect to our next meeting, or does the District 3, it is District 3, right? Yeah, District 3 representatives go see her?
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. It's just the same two people go, I'll go with them, same two people go, and why don't we just contact her now?
Right,
And ask her, it
exactly.
doesn't matter whether she's in or not, she's going to be in.
Right.
This is something we talk to everybody else about, and let her know the sequence we're thinking about. Post her on all our findings and recommendations, let her know the sequence. Meantime, Jan Lusher, you folks can line up.
Well,
again.
that's what I was going to recommend, that from here, we could ask staff to invite Jan to our next meeting. And in the meantime, like you said, you guys will meet with Jen Allen between now and then. And we've got kind of a plan to follow going forward.
Action
Oh, is that okay?
that you follow, I think similar, suggest to how you follow similar approach to how you've had conversations with other supervisor members, and we can reach out to the county administrator's office and get that lined up.
Okay.
I would encourage you to kind of help us clarify the specific topics you'd like to be addressed and fielded by Jan. That would be very helpful so that we can kind of help you stay focused.
So can you guys get us some the topics?
I think those talking points that Ed put together a long time ago are probably still very valid as far as that goes.
That's good, but I think I'd like Tom, before he leaves town, to put, he thinks, what else should we about RTA next, besides what we've said in the talking points.
Okay.
If you could do that, we can marry that with the talking points, and then we have a forum we can use, or a set of topics we can use for the sessions. If you could do that before you leave, it'd be great.
We
If
would
you'll
like
send
you
me
to-
the-
Yeah, I got a lot of spare time, watching streaming video on an iPad all day long, it's kind of a drag.
I know that cot you're sleeping on, it gets uncomfortable, so you better.
Yeah,
stay
the
up
patio
and down.
furniture, I
So-
can sit at my desk and do
So if
this.
you'll do a draft, I'll merge it with mine and give it to the chair.
Okay.
To do as she thinks is appropriate.
The plaque didn't come without some conditions.
There you go, that's right.
Wait.
Okay, very good discussion. Is there anything anyone wants to add to this discussion?
Madam Chair, I maybe ask, as we're setting up these meetings, I think in light of Ed and I think everybody's, or some other people's recommendation, that we find out the legal aspects of what can be done with the registration, registration money. How do we initiate that question? Where does it go and how do we initiate that?
You mean getting the vehicle license tax?
My understanding is there are some supervisors that ask, is it legal for us to take it?
Yeah.
And I think there's a desire to get it answered. How,
You just ask Paul. He goes to legal counsel and requests
great,
it.
great, okay.
That's what happened on the sales tax, when we wondered, can it be put to a vote of the public versus the supervisors?
And
The
then-
answer was no, it has
Okay.
to be the board.
And we've officially asked Paul to do that?
Yeah, he-
Great, okay, thank you.
He's good.
Thank you.
Frank, did you have anything?
That was the same thing. I wasn't sure of the action item to get the legality. So, perfect.
Anything else on these discussions? Okay, I'm moving on to call to audience. I don't believe we have anyone. Thank you, Christina. Future items for discussion. It sounds like we have a lot to add to the agenda. So,
Madam Chair, just to refresh my memory, when we talked last meeting about our meeting schedule,
yes,
so we're now scheduled for January?
we are scheduled
And
for
then-
January.
And
And
continue
then-
monthly thereafter, or
It'll
we-
be every other month.
every other month after that?
Unless the January meeting turns out to be something more substantial and we need to have that monthly,
Got it,
but right now it's January and March.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other suggestions for future items of discussion? Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for January 28th, the new year. If you have anything to add to the agenda, please submit it to the website or the email address by January 10th. And I'll say Happy New Year to everyone. If I don't see you, Merry Christmas. And is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.